Welcome to the Social Lens and thank you for watching. In a historic development, the African Union (AU) has been granted permanent membership in the Group of 20, G20, a premier forum comprising the world's largest economies. The inclusion of the AU represents a significant shift in global economic dynamics, marking a momentous step toward broader African representation on the international stage. To understand the significance of the African Union's inclusion in the G20, let's begin by examining what the G20 is and why it holds such a crucial role in the world of international economics. The G20, initially established in 1999, has evolved into a pivotal platform for international economic cooperation, comprising 19 member countries and the European Union. This exclusive group represents approximately 85% of the global GDP and plays a crucial role in shaping global economic policies. South Africa, as one of the continent's leading economies, has long advocated for greater African representation within the G20. Their consistent efforts to promote the African Union's inclusion in the G20 have now culminated in a historic achievement. The journey to secure a permanent seat at the G20 for the African Union has been marked by several key developments. South Africa's campaign for African representation in the G20 began more than a decade ago. The nation argued that the global economic landscape was shifting, with Africa increasingly becoming a key player. Their persistent efforts included diplomatic initiatives, hosting G20 summits, and emphasizing the importance of addressing African concerns on the international stage. After extensive deliberations, the G20 members unanimously agreed to admit the African Union as a permanent member. This landmark decision was made during the recent G20 summit, making the AU the 21st member of this prestigious forum. Let's now take a closer look at the stakeholders involved and how this historic inclusion impacts them. The African Union emerges as the primary beneficiary of this decision. It now gains a prominent platform to advocate for African interests and engage with the world's largest economies on critical global issues. All G20 member states are stakeholders in this historic event, as the inclusion of the AU will have implications for their economic policies, trade relations, and global decision-making. Indian Prime Minister Modi, as the current G20 chair, played a significant role in facilitating the AU's inclusion. India's diplomatic leadership in this process highlights its commitment to fostering stronger ties with African nations. The African Union's permanent membership in the G20 brings about a multitude of potential implications for the continent and the world. The inclusion of the African Union in the G20 signifies a significant step toward addressing historical imbalances in global governance. It provides a platform for Africa to voice its concerns, influence international policies, and participate actively in global economic discussions. With Africa being home to some of the world's fastest-growing economies, its inclusion in the G20 is expected to have substantial economic implications. African nations can now directly engage with major economies on trade, investment, and development initiatives. The G20's decision to admit the AU may also lead to stronger diplomatic ties between African nations and G20 member states. Enhanced dialogue and collaboration could result in mutually beneficial agreements and partnerships. The AU's inclusion in the G20 could serve as a catalyst for greater unity and collaboration among African nations. A united front within the G20 will enable Africa to present a coherent stance on global issues. As the AU engages with the G20, there will be increased scrutiny and expectations regarding transparency, governance, and accountability in African countries. This could potentially lead to improvements in these areas. The African Union's permanent membership in the G20 is a watershed moment in international diplomacy and economic cooperation. South Africa's unwavering advocacy, coupled with the support of African nations and the G20 members, has paved the way for a more inclusive global economic order. As Africa continues to rise as an economic powerhouse, its presence in the G20 is not only symbolic but has the potential to reshape global economic policies, foster greater cooperation on global challenges, and drive inclusive development on the continent. The world now looks to the AU to leverage its newfound position to advance African interests and contribute to a more equitable and prosperous global economy. If you found this video informative, please click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time.